The Israelites' 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, as detailed in the Bible, was a consequence of their disobedience and lack of faith in God. After being freed from slavery in Egypt, the Israelites were led by Moses toward the Promised Land. However, when they reached the borders of Canaan, they sent 12 spies to scout the land. 10 of the spies returned with a discouraging report, claiming that the inhabitants of the land were too powerful to defeat, while only 2, Joshua and Caleb, believed that, with God's help, they could conquer the land. The people's response to the negative report was one of fear and rebellion. They began to murmur and complain against God, expressing regret for leaving Egypt. In response to this lack of trust and faith, God pronounced a judgment on the Israelites. He declared that none of the adults who had witnessed his miracles in Egypt and during the Exodus would enter the Promised Land, except for Joshua and Caleb. Instead, they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for each day the spies had spent scouting the land, until the faithless generation had passed away. This judgment reflected both God's justice and mercy. On one hand, the Israelites' disobedience and refusal to trust in his promises deserved punishment. On the other hand, God's mercy was evident in that he did not wipe them out completely. Instead, he allowed the next generation to grow up and have the opportunity to inherit the Promised Land. During these 40 years, the Israelites faced various trials and challenges, but God continued to provide for them, supplying manna from heaven, water from rocks, and guidance through the cloud and fire. However, the period was also marked by frequent rebellion and discontent, which further demonstrated their lack of faith in God's provision and leadership. The 40 years in the wilderness serve as a powerful lesson in the Bible about the consequences of unbelief and disobedience, but also about God's unwavering commitment to his people. The wilderness was a place of testing, where the Israelites were called to learn to trust and depend fully on God, and it ultimately prepared them to enter the Promised Land under the leadership of Joshua.